All right, you had just made it. Tell everybody the announcement you just made here, David.
You talk about me about retiring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been looking at some point in time when I ran back 7 years ago. I told everybody then, I said, I'm gonna run 2 terms, maybe 3, and anyway, it's just gotten to the point where my kids, my family have kind of scattered a little bit, and I'd like a little more time to go see them and spend a little more time with my family here and there. So I'll have 34 years in by the time that this term's done, and I just decided that it just wasn't. It was probably better for me just to go ahead and cap it at 2 instead of 3. I'm not a politician, so it's not a. Running for office was something I never probably envisioned myself doing. I've enjoyed it. It's been an honor to serve, as much as just a prosecutor for almost 25 years before I ran. Doing that as much as just actually being an elected solicitor. So, anyway, so I'm retiring in the next end of this term, which would be January 25.
So when you talk about retiring, though, I think you told me you're not really going to sit down and do that. You're going to do something.
Well, yeah, I'll still be young enough. I'm gonna try to do something. I don't know. I've got some things I'm thinking about, and I might do something, maybe something different. I don't know. I've thought about teaching. I've thought about private practice. I've thought about a lot of different things. I'm gonna do something, stay busy.
When you got out of law school, did you ever think this is what you'd be doing?
Yeah, because when I got out of law school, I was leaning 2 different ways: it was prosecution, or I went through a process with the FBI and stuff like that too. It's just that the prosecution part opened up before the other did, and so I ended up here in Anderson. I grew up in Greenville, but George Duckworth hired me back in '91, and I've been prosecuting, except for about a year in Greenville, in this circuit ever since. So. But yeah, that's what I wanted to do, and it gets in your blood. It's there's a good feeling going home at night knowing that you helped a victim, you helped put somebody away, or you just did justice. Maybe you had to dismiss a case or something like that where the person wasn't what he should have been charged with. But either which way, the ultimate goal is to seek justice and do the right thing, and I think we've done a really good job of that.
Elementary stuff, but remind people what the solicitor's office does.
Solicitor's office in most states, or the district attorney's office. State's attorney's office, like down in Florida, places Commonwealth attorney in maybe Kentucky and I think maybe Virginia. But ultimately, we are the prosecution for the state for almost at least the cases that carry 30 days or over 30 days. And we just kept, South Carolina, for whatever reason, kept the old English term, solicitor. And we're the solicitor's office, and people, we're not selling anything. We're legal. We're the prosecutors.
You've seen this area that you cover grow exponentially since you got involved.
It has. It's grown a lot. When I took over, when I first came to work here, first week I spent was at the sheriff's office and riding around with some detectives. Later, many of which, one of them still our chief investigator here, one of the guys I rode with, Tim Jones, and they had maybe 7, 8 detectives back in those days. We had maybe 7 prosecutors at the time. Now they've got about 30, last 30 something, I think, detectives out there, or at least they have had at times. And we have maybe 10 or 11. And the caseload growth has been enormous. Our office has not been able to keep up with the numbers as far as when you're handling cases from not just the sheriff's office with 30 odd detectives out there, but you're talking about all the other departments too, and all the cases and the cases coming in. And I think we get usually over 5,000 a year just here in Anderson warrants, and another about 2,500 sometimes in Oconee every year, and they come rolling in year after year after year. And so it's a lot. We got people up here with caseloads of 400, 500, 600 cases, and that's not unusual. Most circuits do too. We're a middle-sized circuit for South Carolina, and so we're right in the pack with everybody else pretty much. But it's a lot to keep up with, and the growth has been substantial.
How do you figure out which cases to work on first? How do you prioritize them?
Well, I mean, you gotta. The first thing we generally do is, it depends on the charge too. Obviously, a murder case is going to take some sort of priority. Where somebody seriously hurt or injured, or a robbery, something like that. It's going to involve more time and a closer look. We've always, since I've been here, we prioritized on repeat offenders, and every case is different. But it's the ones you see over and over again are the ones that we focus on. And, it just depends on the quality of the case. A lot of cases are not good. A lot of cases cannot be proven. A lot of cases have holes or issues. But you try to focus on the ones that you can do something with, and go from there. So, and there's kind of a checklist to go down. And obviously a first-time drug possession is not going to be a high priority. Whereas a repeat burglar or robber is.
What are some of the most memorable cases you remember when you finish up after the next year?
You can go back and look at a bunch of them. I was here when Chris Taylor got murdered. I was here. Actually didn't get to do anything in court on that because I was the new guy, but I actually did a lot of work and research, on it, and that ended up being a death penalty case at the time. Obviously, the Osborne case recently, that was just probably the biggest one as we've ever had as far as just the size of the case and the scope and all. That's obviously very memorable, and it's one of the fresher ones too. We've had a lot. We had a Sean Owens up in Oconee a few years back. He just for whatever reason met some guy at a concert, and they went and just robbed and killed this old couple. He was a death penalty case at the time until he actually ended up pleading to life. We've had some real, we've had a lot of real vicious ones. The poor Indian lady that got murdered up here on 153. In fact, my deputy solicitor here in town prosecuted that a few years back, and that was a big one just because it was just such a horrible case. Ladies in there working, late at night trying to pay the bills, and this guy just comes in out of Atlanta off the interstate, robs and kills her. And that was a big one because he had some high roller attorney out of one of the better ones in Atlanta, and one of the better ones around here too on the other side. And the wannabe hitman from the interstate here a few years back too. That was an interesting one. But you can go back and point to a lot of them. Osborne obviously sticks out, and a few others. But you also have hundreds of serious robberies and repeat burglars and stuff in there too. I had one that I worked a long time ago where the guy, and I told this story when I was running, but lady was at work, like so many people there at work, and when they're victimized, and these guys, 3 or 4 of them broke into her house, stomped her cat to death on the floor, stoned her dog to death, basically, with paver stones, just out of meanness. Stole everything she had. She came home. They ended up catching him. And the guy, he was fairly young, had a really horrible, rotten, mean attitude. And it concerned me. I ended up filing for the 2 strikes law on him. And he ended up getting convicted at trial and got life. And he's still in. Something pops up about it on even 20-something years later. But just to me, the things that sometimes people will do, and I haven't even mentioned some of the ones with crimes against kids and something like that. Those are the ones that always stick in your mind and never go away. And there have been a lot of those, and it's just a lot of that kind of stuff. It's not something I want to sit here and talk about. But anyway, but it's been a rewarding, 30-something years now. Been an honor to serve and an honor to prosecute. We got a really good office. And there are a lot of really good solicitors' offices around the state. I think we're oftentimes attacked. We catch it from all sides. We catch it from law enforcement, from victims, from the public, just a lot of, how come this case got pled this way, or how come this case got dismissed, or how come this case didn't go, how come you didn't get a conviction on that case? And there's a million different reasons and a million different things that can happen. But I think for the most part, for the money South Carolina spends on solicitors' offices around the state, including this one, our budget's been flatlined from the county for, I can go back 20 years, and it's almost a flat line across. We've had very little increase. The increases we've had have been from the state. But everybody here in this office is a county employee, so it's kind of odd to me that there's not much of a focus. They fund one end of law enforcement, but they don't fund us. And I've always felt like that was a short sight on a lot of things. And I've argued for more money about every year I've been here, and just it falls on deaf ears. But I hope whoever ends up taking over from me will have more success with that. I just think it's important. It's important to keep good prosecutors. Are hard to find. We've had a lot of good ones, got a lot of good ones in this office right now. And we've had a lot of good ones all my career through here. A lot of good, hard-nosed prosecutors. And, we've been fortunate. So I think, our circuit's been fortunate.
Is there anything you wish you had known when you took office that you know today you wish you'd known earlier?
Not really. I'll tell you, the management aspects of my job now that you don't have to fool with when you're just prosecuting cases. You got your caseload, and, you're looking to try to, it's a lot to keep up with, obviously, when you got several hundred cases and serious ones and a lot of court. And, but it's, I can't say there is. I mean, I knew what I was getting into. And, I worked for George Duckworth. I worked for Drew Ann White. I worked for Bob Ariel in Greenville for a year. Worked for Chrissy Adams. But so I worked for 4 solicitors before I ran. And I learned a lot from all of them. And so I kind of had a really good idea kind of what we're, getting into. Like I say, the management stuff is different because until you actually get in and have to do it. But I managed the office at Oconee for 12 years, and so I kind of already had a little bit of an idea kind of what. But we, circuit-wide, we have close to 50 employees in solicitor's office. So it's, it's a pretty good size operation. Greenville is probably easily double that. It just depends on the size of the circuit. So anyway, but to answer your question, if I didn't, I don't know if there's anything that I didn't know that I wish I'd have known. I'm sure I could probably come back and find, if I think about it, I could probably find, it's like, yeah, I wish I had known that. But
are there any challenges that you would suggest the person who follows you is ready for? Are there anything big coming up, or any real challenges that's changed, maybe, or the job that is morphing into something with different challenges, or just the same stuff? Yeah,
we have, it's pretty much been, the way we've done business has pretty much been the same thing for the last 30-something years. Since COVID, we've had a push from Columbia that basically take control of who controls the docket away, and that was based on a case that was ruled on 10, 11 years ago. They call it the Langford case, but it was a case where they ruled that the control of the docket from the solicitor was unconstitutional. So
explain to people what that means, what the docket means.
Well, because we're responsible for prosecuting 100% of the cases that come in this office, which is most of them in the county. Like I said, we don't do all the stuff in summary court. There's a lot of smaller cases that happen, less than 30 days down there. But for anything other that comes up here, and like I say, it's 5,000 something just in Anderson County every year. We're responsible for, I was elected to be responsible for moving those cases through the system and trying to get the best outcome we can out of each and every case. And every case is different. Some demand more time than others. But it's a lot to manage, but we control that flow, and we're in a position to know what cases need to go first, what cases don't need to go first, what cases can sit for a little bit, what cases are more a priority for whatever reason. When we're not in control of that, it puts a lot of pressure on us on areas that we've had a hard time, compensating for. We don't get to control the flow necessarily, every case. It's been a very big adjustment, not just for us, but statewide. It's every circuit's, some circuits have had a harder time than others. But so, I mean, that's going to be, we'll see how that shakes out, my hope is one of these days the new Supreme Court might overturn that and just, put it back the way I think it ought to be, and we ought to be in charge, and we ought to be responsible. Somebody needs to be accountable to the public for that operation. And it's always been whoever I work for, the solicitor or myself, we're the ones that need to be accountable. But what I fear has happened and is going to happen is that we're held accountable for it, basically, because that's the way it's always been, but we're not actually in charge of it anymore. So, it's kind of a two-edged sword on that angle. But we're working through it. The COVID, they shut us down for about 1.5 years at COVID. We weren't allowed to have jury trials much, and that set us back a little bit. So we've been working through some of that, I'm going to say, backlog. We actually worked a lot during COVID, but we just had to move the easier cases we could without trials, which is hard to do. And anyway, so there's a lot there to budget, obviously. I mean, whoever's coming into this job needs to understand that I hope they're more successful than I was. And I remember bosses, I remember my prior bosses, we didn't always have the kind of money, but I think the county's got to realize that the prosecutors, they're professionals. These people went to law school and they're out and they're doing a professional job that's really important. Yeah, I mean, they're professionals, so it's hard to find them. You got to find good people, and you try to keep them here, because the longer somebody's prosecuting, like anything, you don't want to walk in to a doctor's, say you've got a heart issue, you don't want to go in and get heart surgery from some guy right out of med school. When you come in and you're a victim or you're an officer or something, you want somebody with experience handling your case. And the longer somebody's here, and it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years to kind of get your feet wet and get in court a little bit, and you start with smaller cases, but to work to that level. In years past, it's always been more lucrative. People come in and get a little experience like that, and then they'll go out in private practice, and they're going to make more money. Everybody knows it. But we've actually been fortunate to have a lot of people stay and keep prosecuting. And we pulled some in that were career prosecutors from places like Greenville and stuff like that, who wanted to keep doing it. And so that's kind of your challenge, is keeping good people, I think, and having the experience there. And that, that comes with, it's not easy. And I'm not talking just prosecutors too. We're talking some of the paralegals and stuff here in this office that handle the paperwork from day to day. They work their tails off, and you just can't pull somebody in out of paralegal school or out, even with a college degree, you can't pull somebody in even with really good skills. It takes them a while to learn the court process, the indictments, how things work, So we've got a lot of people in this office that have been here 15, 20, 25, 30 years too. And been fortunate enough that when I got elected, a lot of them stayed.
What will you miss most?
Probably the people. I miss, and that includes everybody. I miss, unless I stay in some sort of private practice or something, I'll miss going to court. It's hard to try cases. You can try them as solicitor, and I've tried several since I got elected, including Osborne case and stuff, and tried a couple in Oconee. But it's harder to try cases routinely because you got so much other stuff that you're responsible for. But I do, I'll miss, and I will miss going to court on some of that stuff. But the people, the relationships, just dealing with people, it's, I probably miss that somewhat.
Is your family happy about the news?
Yeah, I think they're happy for me. I think they're happy. I think they're going, like I say, it's going to be nice to be able to go take off and go see my kids at times where I've not been able to. So, and a couple of years ago, it wasn't an issue because they were all still pretty close to here. But, when they start scattering out on you and stuff like that, and I've got 3 girls and a boy, and they're all, only one of them still close by, and everybody else is scattered. So we'll see. But they're, everybody's supportive. But, they know they'll find something else to do. So.